Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of the SPYPOINT podcast. Trent Marsh, your host here from SPYPOINT. Very privileged today to be joined by Roger Raglin. I think Roger probably doesn't need any introduction for any of you that are really interested in hunting in the outdoors, and really anybody that has followed any of it over the last 30 to 40 years has come across Roger at some point.
Careful now.
Of course. But it's like I said, it is just a privilege to have you with us here, Roger. Again, you can invite everybody to rate, review, subscribe to the podcast wherever it is you're consuming it. And of course, follow SPYPOINT on all social media channels. Just search SPYPOINT, you'll find us there. But Roger, for the one or two people that maybe aren't familiar with you, can you tell us a little bit about how you got started in this whole crazy industry and what it is you've been doing the last year or two?
Well, people kind of scratch their head a little bit when I tell them that I stumbled into the hunting industry, with really no background and didn't know a single soul. I went to college forever and got a bunch of college degrees. In fact, I have a master's degree from Duke University, and Duke's playing tomorrow night. Go Blue Devils.
Hopefully that ages well.
Yeah, and but anyway, came back to Tulsa and took some time off, started paint contract, and I just got a wild hair. I thought, boy, it'd be kind of neat to see if I could make a hunting video. And so I did, made a hunting video, the Grand Slam of deer, just out of, never crossed my mind to get into the hunting business. I just want to see if I could make a video, and found a distributor to sell it. And he called me and said, I want you to make me some hunting videos. I said, no, thanks. I've had all the fun I could stand. It was really expensive, back, were a fortune back then. I didn't even buy one. I paid a production company to go with me, and I was broke. But anyway, I did. I agreed. He and I worked a deal out. And the next year I came out with a tape called Whitetails East of the Mississippi. Plenty of big bucks to spare. And it became the #1 selling hunting video in America that year.
Now,
and it put me on the map.
Can I ask what year that was?
We shot that in 1988.
That's fantastic.
We shot that in 88. It was released in 89. And, of course, the next year I thought, well, I'll make another one. And by the third year, I told my wife, I said, I think I may just try to make hunting videos. And I was just, like I said, I was a small-time paint contractor. And it just kind of took off from there. So been doing it ever since.
That's fantastic.
A long time ago.
Fantastic.
Yeah, but when I got started, Ronald Reagan was president.
Well, and you kind of tipped the hand a little bit too, because you put out a hunting tape.
VHS hunting video. Yeah. And I hate to say this, and I know we're going to discuss more things today of how the industry has evolved, but I call those kind of the good old days, because back in the late 80s and the early, of course, the hunting video, outdoor entertainment for sportsmen didn't even appear until the mid 90s.
Really?
80s, I'm sorry, 80s, 80, 83, 84, 85, when you first hunters started seeing. I remember watching, and I've told him, Gene, Barry Wenzel, a tape, one of the original tapes produced that was a national hit was called Bow Hunting October Whitetails, back about 1985. And I remember watching that, and it actually showed the era impact of a kill scene on a whitetail deer. And I thought that was incredible. I'd never seen that in my life. And they set the groundwork. That was a huge, successful video, but that was the entertainment for sportsmen. And our market I was very fortunate to be befriended by a fellow by the name of Sheen Ray. DMI was the name of the company out, and they were in Oklahoma City. So that was close to me, 120 miles.
Mm-hmm.
He was the largest video distributor in the nation, and the market were ma and pa video stores all over the country. There were 12,000 of those, 12,000 places to rent videos. We would produce a new video, and DMI would distribute those to those, and that's what sportsmen would do. They would go in and they would rent the videos, and that was the outdoor entertainment for the industry. Before that, the writers was the print was God.
Mm-hmm.
But when video came along, all of a sudden it flipped, and video became the most powerful source in the industry for outlet and for entertainment. The biggest problem is, I say it's not a problem, but it was a problem at the time, is that it didn't last very long. In just a few years, it was only 5, 6, 7 years that the video had its heyday. Then the television started evolving.
Right.
And it went quickly, this, that, and the other. Now it's, social media and so, I mean, it's just everywhere. Every outlet. It's evolving so fast. It's kind of hard to keep up with. But back when I started, video was God. It was God, and it was the main source of entertainment for outdoor, for sportsmen, for hunters, fishermen.
You're 100% right, though. It's hard to keep up with, and Frank, and we've had this conversation before. It's a testament to you, and makes what you've done all the more impressive, that not just in the outdoor industry, but just the way media has changed over the last, really it's that 30 to 40 year window that you're talking about there. The number of personalities and entities and platforms that we've seen rise and get popular and then completely disappear and just be a footnote. Again, not just in the hunting industry, but just in general, that list is huge. So to be sitting here in 2022, after getting that start during the Reagan administration, and it's a testament to you and the way that you've approached the industry and the following that you've built to still be relevant and still be doing what you're doing, because so many people, it's 5 or 6 years regardless of the era, and they're gone. And here we are, 2022, and you're still going strong, and it's fun to see. I mean, when I was coming up and getting interested in it, I had some folks in my family that hunted, but it wasn't a major thing. It was just kind of one of those occasionally do it. And grandpa hunted rabbits and used to hunt, and dad hunted deer some, but it wasn't a huge aspect of our family life. So I was one of those, as I was a teenager and a young adult that was coming up, going to the writers and the video. And that was where I didn't have necessarily that firsthand, teacher, that firsthand personality. So personalities like you and some others were really kind of how I matured as a hunter and really got into hunting. So to see you still doing it after all these years with all the changes, it's awesome to see. And I think a lot of people, there's a lot of lessons to be learned. I think Roger Raglin Outdoors is probably a case study to be had about how to cross generations and what can be done to make it last. So it's really cool to see. It is really cool to see.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that.
So, and you kind of touched on it. Obviously the platforms have changed, the mechanisms has changed, but in the last 40 years, hunting hasn't really changed. But what is it you'd say you've seen change the most in the industry in that time?
Well, I don't think there's any question that technology that is available to sportsmen is probably the biggest thing, and I go back. I did figure up, it was last year, I thought, I wonder just how many hours I have logged in a tree stand waiting on a deer. And I was trying to be, a round ball figure, and I've logged over 100,000 hours deer hunting in a tree, waiting on a deer. 100,000 hours, and back in the years ago, how I remember looking at reading sign rubs and scrapes and not knowing the buck I was after, but knowing that it had to be a good buck because of the sign. And now, buddy, you just throw up a spy point, throw up a trail camera, or you know what? If you got a 100-acre piece of property or a 200-acre piece, throw up 15 cameras.
Right.
Throw a bunch of them up. You got trail cameras and the apps that are available to us. I mean, the technology that hunters have, the equipment that hunters. I thought about this the other day. A lot of people have never heard of the name of a bow hunter by the name of Miles Keller. Miles Keller was from Minnesota. He was the first, and I'm going to use the word, and I say this respectfully, layperson. He wasn't in the industry. He was, I think that Miles worked for the county as a surveyor or something like that. They're in Minnesota. And Miles was the first individual that really got notoriety as a layperson of killing some really big bow hunter, strictly big bucks. And there was I think Outdoor Life did an article, and they had all the bucks around him. He's out in the yard, and they had him there were 17 huge upper end Pope and Young class whitetails that Miles Keller had. So it kind of made a name for himself back in the 80s and in the early 90s. And I can remember talking with Miles at a deer show, and this was 10, 15 years after that. And he pointed out, he said, can you believe how good can you believe the bows we used to use to kill these bucks? He said, the bows that are available to us now leapfrog another 15 years. And and I'm not here to promote any particular bow company, so I won't even call any names. But there are dozens of great bow companies out there, and every one of them makes a great bow. Mm-hmm. You should see some of the stuff we used to hunt with. Mm-hmm. It was amazing, The same way with scopes and rifles, technology and our equipment, everything available to sportsmen today. It's in another realm. I wish I had one here. I have a little camera that I use to film with all the time. It's not my main camera, but I bought it at Best Buy, for $1,500. Yeah. My Beta cam we used to shoot videos on weighs 40 pounds. And it costs $60,000, Trent. I got one here. I use as a doorstop. Would you like to buy it?
No,
but the way technology has evolved and everything that's the disposal that we have at our disposal as sports, we're spoiled. We're spoiled compared to what the old timers how we used to. But even then, with all the great technology, I love hunting whitetails. That's my thing, and I'll never ever. And I've had a chance to go all over the world. And had all kind of critters. I don't even know what they were. Shoot a bit. Is that a good one? I guess. I don't know. What is it? But whitetail deer is really my thing. But even with all the great technology and everything, an old mature whitetail buck, an old buck, it's still a challenging critter to hunt. Mm-hmm. And about the time you got them figured out. With all our technology. They'll throw you for a loop, and the buck you've been after for 2 years, you never see him again, and don't even know what happened to him. So, but the technology that's available to sportsmen now is incredible.
No, you're not wrong. And like, it's still the success rate for mature, like you said, chasing a mature whitetail. And it just came up in the last episode we talked about with Josh Pretzer. The way that the land has evolved, and some of these bigger parcels getting broke up, and how many more hunters the deer have to deal with, and how many of them still get 5, 6, and 7 years old with the technological advances, with the properties being broken up and more people hunting them than they were before, more people having access to hunt them. frankly, it's incredible. And I just got an email from our state DNR, because our turkey season's getting ready to kick off here before too long. And the success rate on harvested turkeys in our state this last year was right at 17%. And even with turkeys, you think, oh, you roost them, you show up the next morning, you throw a decoy out, yelp a couple times and kill a turkey. And more often than not, that's actually not what happens for hunters.
Yeah, right.
And it's, I think part of it is because there's so many, because we've gone from VHSs and a few people doing it to now, if you've got 40 acres of handy cam and a YouTube channel, you're doing content. And if you kill a deer every so often, there's so many more people doing it. I think that our perception of it has changed where the reality hasn't changed. You're more likely to not kill a big mature whitetail than you are to kill one. But our perception is that you got to do it every year. You got to do it all the time. You got to do it in multiple states. And the reality of it is more guys go home with tag soup every year than a booner on the wall. And it's good to sometimes get reminded that the deer win more often than not. Still the deer win.
Yeah. Well, of course, that brings us full circle to another thing is that when I grew up in the little town called Wagner, Oklahoma, 14 miles north of Muskogee. And yeah, I used to run up and down the streets of Muskogee, Oklahoma, and I have no idea whether they still smoke marijuana there or not, but there was a Manly's footwear, honest to God, in that old song. But I grew up in a time when success rates in the state of Oklahoma were 10%. Mm-hmm. Buck only, and 90% of the deer killed were spikes. Mm-hmm. I mean, there weren't that many deer, and so I think another thing for sportsmen, there's never been a better time to be a whitetail deer hunter than right now. There's more whitetail deer right now than there has ever been in history. So there are a lot of opportunities to harvest deer, and I try to encourage all sportsmen to, and I can't speak for every state, but in virtually every state, there are tremendous opportunities to fill your freezer with does. Go out there and shoot excess does off to help stabilize our herd, and game departments are wanting people to do that. And honest to God, a little 2-3-year-old doe much better eating than a 5, 6, 7-year-old buck. I can promise you.
Right.
But for the opportunity of just harvesting deer and filling up your freezer with deer meat, it's never been better than now. There's no question about it. Hunting's better now. Technology's better now. If you're a deer hunter, there's no better time to enjoy the great outdoors and be a successful whitetail deer hunter than right now. Right now is the best time to do it.
I can't disagree with a word of it. So we got whitetails. Obviously, we love whitetails. But other than whitetail, if there's a hunt that every hunter should try to make happen in their lifetime, according to Roger, what would it be?
Oh, well, I don't know. I think we even talked about this at dinner this last January at the archery trade show. I think one of the coolest hunts that is a difficult hunt is a Coues deer hunt. Mm-hmm. And for most whitetail hunter, if for a guy that likes to whitetail hunt, I'd love to just be able to take a guy, guys from back east, or the Midwest even, on a traditional Coues deer hunt for a little desert whitetail. And I think everybody ought to at least try to put that on your bucket list as you can, because if you sit and watch a show about a Coues deer hunt, it doesn't sink in what it really is. It is extremely physically demanding. Trust me, it's physically demanding. And at the end of your first day of your traditional Coues deer hunt, you're going to go back and get into your cot or your bed. You won't have any trouble sleeping that night. You're going to be extremely tired. Uh-huh. And what's going to be going through your mind is, I am not going to get one of these. You just spent the entire day glassing and you didn't even see one, but they were out there. Now, the guy with you, if he's had any experience, and let me show you what to look for. Very challenging hunt, very challenging hunt. But when you do have success on getting one of those little desert whitetails that live up on top of the mountains and in southern Arizona and Mexico, it's just a great, exhilarating feeling. You have earned it. So it's a whitetail deer hunt that I would like to just take everybody on. But of course, you have to be physically fit in order to do that, though. You can't be. It can get you physically. Put it that way.
Yeah.
It's not 10. It's not 15, 20,000, but it is 4, 5, 6,000 feet up on top of the mountains kind of hunt. Now, I've got a good one hanging on the wall, so I ain't never going to do that again. I've been there, done that. All right. So, but I would, if I had one hunt that I would just really like to just, hey, I'm going to take you on a hunt. We're going to go Coues Deer hunting. I'd like to take anybody that's able to out there to do that. A traditional Coues Deer hunt. It's there's a lot of neat things to it.
So, obviously, you've been most places and done most things. Is there one that's gotten away? Is there one that you haven't been able, a hunt that you haven't been able to do, something that you haven't been able to close the deal on that you would still really like to make happen?
Well, I don't, I've been on a few brown bear hunts, and I'm just not that mad at them. I've had several friends. Oh, you gotta go shoot a great big, one of them big Alaskan brown bear. Well, I've been up there a couple of times, and I'll tell you a funny story. I met an outfitter at the SHOT Show in Las Vegas just a few years ago, and we just struck up a conversation. And he said, I've watched you for years, and he goes, it would really be an honor for me to take you on a brown bear hunt. I said, yeah. I said, where I'm down. He told me where he was at. Great area. They routinely kill 8.5 to 10 foot big brown bear, with heads this bigger, tradition. Okay, and he charges $18,500 for that hunt. He said, I'm going to give this hunt to you. All you have to do is get there. It doesn't cost you a dime. Okay. Well, thank you. What are your success rates? He said, about 40%. How long is this hunt's going to take? He said, it's 10 to 12 day hunt is what we schedule. And you leave from camp on foot. Yeah, we walk all day long. Okay. I said, is it going to rain every day? Probably. It could probably rain every day. No, thanks. I've been there, done that. You see, I've been there, done that. And I'm just not that mad at him. And I think I hurt his feelings by turning down an $18,500 hunt. But I don't know. I don't have a lot. I don't have anything really that I have on my bucket list that I feel like needs to be, fulfilled.
Right.
I'd like to go back, and there's 3 states that I've hunted that I didn't shoot a whitetail in. I didn't shoot a whitetail in Maine. I shot 2 moose and 2 bear and some bear in Maine, but I haven't ever killed a whitetail in Maine. I hunted there. I hunted whitetail in New Mexico, the traditional whitetail, and I have still never killed a whitetail in Nebraska on a couple of hunts. Those are 3 states that I've hunted. I've hunted whitetails in 33 different states, U.S. states, 4 Canadian provinces, and 5 Mexican states. So I've hunted whitetails a few places. But I'm still thinking I need to go back. I got skunked in those 3 states.
Right.
So I think if I figure out a way, and I may do it this year, on my list is to go back to north central Nebraska and do some crossbow hunting in October, maybe even September. And I'll probably do that, So I am a goals guy. I think you need to set goals. Years ago, long before I ever thought about getting into the hunting industry. I set a goal to shoot whitetail in 20 different U.S. states. When I set particular goals for myself, I usually stick with it until I get them done, you know, and I met that goal. But those 3 states that I went, you know, and didn't fill my tag, they're still in my crawl a little bit. So I'll probably just try to knock those 3 out before I kick the bucket and call it a day.
That makes sense. And those, I've been to Maine. I did a bear hunt in Maine, and that's, you know, I'm in Indiana, and I am thankful every October that I'm hunting edge whitetail. You know, those the folks that do it clear up in the Northeast, those big woods deer, and even you get into kind of the northern part of Wisconsin and upstate New
That's
York.
a tough hunt.
That's
a tough hunt.
Yeah.
Yes.
I kind of have a rule, and you can tell me whether you think it's fair or not. I generally, as soon as someone tells me how good of a hunter they are, I generally start tuning out everything they have to say, because most of the really good hunters that I talk to pretty much say the same thing. You can't shoot what's not there. And if you put yourself in good location more often than not, the difference between a good hunter and a bad one is pretty thin. So I know how easy it is where I'm at. And when I start hearing people brag about how great they are at killing deer in ag country, I kind of smile and nod, because I've been to some of these places where I'm pretty sure you airdrop some of these guys in and say, great, welcome to the great Maine wilderness. Go find a whitetail, let alone kill one. Go find a whitetail, because it's not the same. It's not even, you're not, as far as I'm concerned, you're not even hunting the same animal. They're both an Indiana whitetail and a Maine whitetail. They may be the same species, but they are not the same animal.
No, yeah, the Northeast, the big timber hunt, you know, I have several dear friends that live in Vermont and live in Maine, but live in Vermont, New Hampshire. And they're just really tickled to death to have an opportunity to kill just about anything during the fall. Because there just aren't that many deer to begin with. The numbers are down, and hunting big timber whitetails is a different beast. You hit the nail on the head. That's an extremely difficult hunt. And I was hunting. I'll tell you, I'm gonna tell a story I shouldn't tell.
We love those stories.
Hunting the big timber north of Rhinelander, Wisconsin, way up northern Wisconsin. One November. No, man, it was cold. This has been 20 years ago, but it was, buddy, let me tell you, it was cold. Opening day of rifle season, and we were in a blind, and out walked a buck that I should have shot, if you want to know the truth. He was a big body. I think he was a 3 or 4 year old, big bodied deer. He was really a shooter, but he was, believe it or not, he was real pencil horned, real thin. He's a mid 130-inch type deer, a nice buck. And I'm thinking about, but he's real, you know, like a bird dog. I call him Birdie. You could tell that there had been a hot doe in there. So he was acting crazy. He was by himself. And I had a cameraman with me. And it was cold. And I walked right in front of us, 70 yards, walked right in front of us. So what do you think? He goes, well, he's a good deer. He said, he goes, but I don't know. He goes, it's first morning, first day. I said, I think I'm going to let him go. Just let you, we're going to let him. And he kind of walked around we're just hunting a cut where some timber had been cut, clear cut. He walked over, and there was a little old spike jumped out, and they run around kind of chasing, you know, acting once again kind of frisky, and then they just disappeared. Well, you know, come noontime, I told Marvin, my cameraman, I said, let's go back to the motel and warm up. It was really miserable, you know. So we went back. I went back and got in bed, if you don't know the truth. Went back and got in bed. We're staying in Rhinelander. I woke up, it's after 3 o'clock. Oh my God. You know, away that far north, you know, it gets dark 4:30. It gets dark. I thought, oh my Lord, I called Mark. I said, get up, we got to go. And instead of, we're hunting out of a ground, I had thrown a ground blind up. We're hunting out of a ground blind. I said, instead of parking the truck, filming on a beta cam, I said, I'm going to drive you down to the ground blind. I'm just going to drive you down to the ground blind and set up. Then I'll just pull the truck back over here and come back. We top the hill and head down to the ground blind. Just pull up and get out. I'm in Big Red, my red excursion. Pull Big Red up. It's still running, but it's running, and we're hurrying, trying to get Marvin out. Looked up, and out in this field steps one of these, and he's chasing a doe. And that Spike we saw that morning, that Spike's running around there. He's not gonna get in on the action. Of course, that buck's not paying any attention to us. He's that doe, and she could, she'd look up at us, but then he'd bird dog her around. Get the camera up, so Marvin throws camera up. I just my gun. Finally, they slowed down. Right in front of us, 60 yards. Blowed a hole in him. Got him 186-inch buck. Yes, I'm a great hunter. Yes, I am.
Lucky over good every time. I will take lucky over good every single time. Good
any day. But to your point, big timber hunting's tough hunting.
Yeah,
tough hunting it is.
It's I'm thankful every year it's not something I have to do. So we are in spring though. We're talking it's early April, and in the South some of the turkey seasons are open already. Ours, we're more of a May season here, but I feel like turkey hunting is one of those things where you either kill your turkey that before breakfast on the first day and you pack it in and you call it a day, or you chase them the entire season, and at the last minute of last day on the way to the roost tree, you manage to get your tag filled. And there really never seems to be any in between. It's never the third or fourth or fifth day. It's either the first morning or the last afternoon. And people, I think turkeys get not necessarily a bad rap as being, a little bit easier to kill. But there's a lot of hard birds out there to kill too. And sometimes I think people assume it's a little easier than it is. And there's all the classic, don't call too much and stay in one spot. But if you had to beat something into the turkey hunter's head, whether he's a new turkey hunter or he's been at it for a while, if there's one thing you could make them understand, what would it be?
Well, you already mentioned it. It is true. Most turkey hunters call them to death.
Mm-hmm.
They call them to death. They call it. We did a hunt. It's been a couple of years ago now, and for whatever reason, I had another guy go with me to help film, and he considered himself a great turkey hunter, and I already was worried about this. So we get in the blind. It's early, obviously, but the blind set up. We're in a good spot. We're in a real good spot on a great property. We're in North Texas is where we're at. Hit the call. What? Here. He's close. God, just worked up already. And he couldn't run the camera for wanting to call to him. Trying to impress me, I guess, with a great call. I know he's coming. Get on the camera. And the footage is terrible. And he and I actually had some words when it was all said and done, but everybody likes to try to be this great caller, and they do call too much, and they don't wait long. They get too impatient. Mm-hmm. Give the bird some time. We were in, what was the town we were again in North Texas on a celebrity hunt. Actually, it was a celebrity. I think we were, I forget the name of the town now, but my friends, Lee and Tiffany were there in the camp. A lot of people, it was a big hoop-de-doo law. And it rained, had a lot of rain the night before. So it was wet. And I forget the guy that was helping guide me. But he liked walking me to death. Now I was heavier back then. That's back before I lost all my weight. So I'm probably 280, 200, between 280, 290. And I'm wore out. He's wore me out. And about 11 o'clock, I just told him, I said, I'm not going any further than right here. And I put the shotgun down and sat down by the tree. I said, let's, and he called a few times. We didn't hear nothing. He goes, well, we'll just sit here and wait a while. And, but an hour later, we heard one gobble. Somebody woke me up. I said, I'm going to take a nap. Thanks. And he goes, we heard one gobble way back here. He hit the call again. It was 30 minutes later. We're still in here and got it. And he come. Walked across the field, walked right up here in front of us. I shot him. He was the biggest bird killed that entire weekend at that event. Mm-hmm. It's in the other room. I got a great big thing, but they just get in a hurry and try to cover too much ground. Just relax, take it easy. You're better off if you're where there are birds. You have to be where there are birds. All right, there have to be birds there, but they may be coming a long ways, and you just never know how long it's going to take them to get to you. So don't call too much, and then give it some time. Show some patience. Right in the middle of the day, you can have some success if you're just sitting there waiting, looking, and just call a little bit, and then just give it 30, 40 minutes. Set an hour. That right. You might have a chance at maybe the biggest bird on the whole property.
I know it in my head, but it always amazes me. You look at a turkey and you think turkey, and you just assume they're not covering a lot of ground. And man, when a turkey wants to get somewhere, it always seems to me they can make it a whole lot quicker than a deer can. When a turkey decides he's going across that field, he's going across that field now. Yeah. And if they want to get to you, even if that gobble seems like it's 2 miles away, if he's talking and he's headed your way, you're better off just sitting on your hands and letting it happen. And yeah, I think there's a reason that it gets said all the time, and you touched on it too. Everybody wants to be a great caller, right? The bird I killed 2 years ago, I love pot calls. I like using pot calls. I don't care for mouth calls. I don't really care for box calls. I like running a pot call. And we had worked some gobblers, got in early, and we'd work some gobblers, and they just 150 yards out. They would not come any closer. And they had a hen with them. And we'd talk and we'd wait, and we'd talk and we'd wait. And we'd been there about 3 hours. And I finally dug out, everybody ranks their calls. You've got your favorites, right? And I went to the absolute bottom of the barrel, the first cheap little glass over slate call in a plastic pot that I bought when I was a kid, and a cheap little carbon striker. And I pulled it out, and it just sounds like fingernails on a chalkboard. And I hit it once, and that hen that was with them, you'd have think I lit a fire under her. And I couldn't make it through a cluck without her cutting me. And Roger, it sounded terrible. If we were to go sit in the rocking chairs on the backyard and I'd say, hey, Roger, listen to me work this call. Tell me what you think. You'd roll your eyes and say, keep it in your pocket. I don't want you calling when we go out. It sounded awful, but by God, that was the tone. That was the sound that made that hen mad. And she was going to come end the conversation, and brought those gobblers with her. And we ended up shooting one. That was the last day here in Indiana season 2 years ago. And it, like you said, you get so caught up in being aggressive and being a good caller. And I've been with guys that hunt waterfowl. It's the same way. Listen to how good of a waterfowl caller I am. Listen how good I can blow this goose call. And then no birds show up. It doesn't matter. And then somebody that, it just sounds like someone's running over the goose with the truck, but by golly, the birds come in with that call. There's no sense. It doesn't hurt to try, really. If you're not in them, it doesn't hurt to try, but when you are in them, maybe take a breath, let it soak for a minute.
Yeah, I have hunted with world champion turkey callers. I have been in camp, and they were calling for me. And one of the best callers I ever hunted with, and I'm not even going to call a name because somebody might recognize the name, but I mean, when I was hunting with him, I thought, that sounds terrible. This guy's supposed to be good. No, I'm serious. I thought, I thought, boom. I mean, every time we went, we killed a bird. He could call them, and I just finished spending a week with 2 world champion callers. We never killed a bird. So you don't have to be a great quote unquote caller, so to speak, you know. But turkey hunting can be really frustrating. It can. But that, you know, that's oh my Lord, no matter what you're hunting, whitetails or turkeys, if you just went out there the first 5 minutes and just boom, successful every time, wow, that wouldn't be any fun.
Right.
You know, the hunts that I remember the most in all these years are the hunts where I struggled and worked hard and went right down to the last wire, the last day. When I thought for sure I wasn't going to fill my tag, wasn't going to get my deer. You know, those are the hunts I remember. Those are the ones that I cherish and it's not the hunts where I, you know, got the buck I killed north of Rhinelander, the 185 6-inch buck. You know, I like that buck, but it didn't mean that much to me because I just stumbled into him on the first day of the hunt. You know, but boy, those I worked my tail off of, and I worked hard and didn't think I was going to get one. Then all of a sudden it happened. Oh, man, that's what memories are made of, when you struggle and finally get it done. You know, have the success, or even don't even get one. The hunts where I, you know, going out and just shooting something first 5 minutes, it wouldn't be any fun. It wouldn't be any fun. I'd quit doing it. I'd quit doing it if it was that easy.
So then that's what I want to hear. Your favorite unsuccessful hunt story. Because that's why everybody's listening to the podcast, is they want to hear Roger tell stories. They don't want to hear me talk. But you know, we've talked about some successes of what is your favorite I didn't kill a thing story?
Well, the one that I never, and I couldn't even talk about this for the longest time. And this is, I'm trying to think, 2003 or 4. So it's been close to, hard to believe it's been close to 20 years ago. I was shooting for a muzzleload company. And the fella I'm going to talk about is a dear friend of mine. I'll talk to him today. So I can talk about him. I'm not going to call names, but I can talk about him. But he was the CEO of this muzzleload company at the time. And he called me. It was a long year. That was a long, difficult year. Went hard. I get tickled, Brent, you might understand this. I mean, oh man, I'd love to do what you do. Oh, you got the bet. Man. Oh. And sometimes I'd like to, well, let me just drag you along with me for one season and see how you do. All right. You know, by the end of November, I promise you, your tail will be dragging. Let me tell you. No, it's a long, difficult, stressful season for me every year. It begins in September and doesn't end till usually 1st of January. This was a really tough year, and I couldn't wait to get home because right before Thanksgiving, I had a few days off, like a week. But I'm not doing, and our rifle season is going to go on, and I'm not leaving the house. I'll tell you, I needed a few days off. I get home and my phone rings, and it's my buddy. He said, something has come up, and he goes, and I can't make this hunt in Kansas. He goes, I need for you to go. I said, what do you mean? He goes, yeah, and they always open the Wednesday after Thanksgiving, Kansas rifle season. And I said, that's 3 or 4 days away. I said, no, I'm not going. He goes, I really need for you to go. I said, no, I'm not going. Let me get this straight. I'm not going. Tell the guy you can't make it. He goes, I paid. He goes, the hunt's paid for. It's just going to sit there. Now the laws change every year. Back then, the landowners could just transfer a tag, so that I could go up there and get a tag. They didn't have to put any drawing. I don't know what the laws are now, but trust me, we didn't break any laws. And I just literally hung up and said, I'm not going. He called, a few hours, he called me back. He goes, I can't find anybody to go. He said, this is a big deal, Roger. I need for you. I said, I can't even I told my cameraman's exhausted. I said, I can't, I don't even have a cameraman. Well, find a cameraman, anybody that can go, we'll pay him. We'll pay him. So the only guy that I knew that might be available, he wanted 400 a day. This is 20 years ago. And I said, all right, let me call it. He goes, yeah, we'll pay it for 400. And so I didn't want to be there. Let's put it that way. I didn't want to go, didn't want to be there. It's Chanute, Kansas. It's only 130 miles from my house. We get up there, 14,000, it's a hunting preserve, 14,000 acres, 14,000 acres, and it hadn't been deer hunted in years. It's prime Southeast Kansas. It's prime country. I didn't want to be there. I kind of showed myself a little bit. And I even refused a muzzleload hunt. They're paying for it. I said, I want a rifle tag. I took my 300. I said, I want a rifle tag. So the first day they stuck us down, they were expecting us to muzzleload hunt. We couldn't see 50 yards. So I kind of had a fit. And I'll tell a story that everyone put this in your memory and don't ever forget this. I do this to this day. I learned a long time ago that a key to success for whitetail hunting is hunting some place next to some place where there's no hunting pressure. And we're hunting 1,200 acres. I said, show me. I said, I got a 300 mag. I said, I can swing this. Show me this property. So we're driving around the outside perimeter of this property and look over here and I could see some heavy equipment. And it's still relatively open country, but I said, what's that over there? He goes, that's a rock quarry over there. I said, rock quarry? I said, yeah. I said, I'm going to hunt next to the fence line in the morning next to this rock quarry. There's no hunting over there. Oh, no hunting. I said, well, the deer don't know what side of the fence they're on, do they? No, they don't. I said, well, I'm going to hunt. He goes, well, there's no place. There's no blind set up over here. I said, I don't need a blind. There's this big old bush there. I said, I'll at daylight, I'm going to be standing up against this bush 30 yards from the fence line. Now, I got 1,200 acres to hunt, but I'm 30 yards off the fence line, but I'm next to the rock quarry that I know there's no hunting. No telling how many years there's been no hunting. Andy Slostis was filming for me. And it was before daylight. When I'm hunting, good glasses become valuable before and after daylight hours. I'm hunting. I'm not shooting, but I'm hunting. It was dark and I'm glassing. And I could make out an image down on the rock quarry way back behind us, hundreds of yards. I looked at Andy, I said, I don't know what this is, but if it comes up here, I'm going to shoot it. I said, it's a giant bodied something, looks like a buck bird dog and a doe. It was too early. It's before daylight, but good glasses allows you to see before daylight. Sun broke real good. 30 minutes later, across the fence line is one of these. This thing looked like a Volkswagen with horns. He had a neck this big around. 160-inch type deer, but a 6-7-year-old buck shooter with a doe. And once again, a spike running around watching the show. And Andy's filming. I could have killed him right then. Of course, he's on the wrong side of the fence. It's not against the law to hunt on fence lines as long as you don't shoot across the fence, which we don't. I said, oh, my Lord, he's a shooter. He goes, oh, he looks like a big one. I said, no, he is. He's a shooter. Now, at the bottom of the hill was a little green field, 1/4 of an acre. And I said, see that green field? They're going to come out right down there at 200 yards. I said, they finally went off into the brush. I said, they're going to come out. They're going to get on this side of the fence. They're going to come to that green field, and I'm going to kill that buck. Get ready. Well, up the hill on the other side, up at the top is where they came out about 45 minutes later. So, oh my Lord, they're way up there. And in big open country, it's easy to misjudge distances. And I didn't have my rangefinder. I'm shooting a 300 mag, but I'm also shooting a 200 grain bullet. He jumped the fence and I started, as soon as his feet hit the ground where we had permission to hunt, I started shooting. And Andy kept saying, he's still moving. He'd run over here and stop and I'd shoot at him. He'd run over here and stop. I don't think they ever knew I was even shooting at him. Boom. I thought it was about 350. The next day I found out it was 450. I'm shooting under him. That's what I'm doing. back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I believe I shot 9 or 10 times. And he finally went down and kind of disappeared with that doe. I got all this footage of me bouncing him back and forth. I broke the cardinal rule. Do you know there's a cardinal rule? I don't mean to be long. There's a cardinal rule in video. Only one. The cameraman never leaves the shooter. The shooter never leaves the cameraman. That's a cardinal rule. I looked at Andy and said, you stay right here. I'll be right back. I'm going to run over and I'm going to get down there. I'm going to kill that buck. I run down the draw, got back, run back up, just in time to see him going through the brush over there about 200 yards. Looked right out in front of me at 150 yards. It is almost like he had his feet together. He was looking at them. Was one of these. I fell down on my knees, and I'll never forget that little voice in the back of my head. It said, this one will make you famous. This one will make me famous. Threw my shooting sticks up. Boom. You see that shot? Boom. I'm going to watch him fall. Boom. Instead of staying down on that rifle, shooting correctly, I pulled my shot. That bullet went over Saigon or someplace. I don't know. He turned and run. I threw 2 more at him. I knew he was over 190. Typical. I knew he was. I didn't know how big he was, but I knew he was that big. Now, I don't want to talk a whole lot more about that.
Understandable.
The next day I went to another property and I killed a 150-inch buck. Cut his horns off and said, I'm getting out of here. I want to go home. I was still sick at my stomach. And we had a Weatherby Award winner safari club in camp. Now that's the greatest award that you can receive as a, big time, big shot hunter. And I agreed to stay over one more day and let my cameraman sit with him to maybe see this buck. That's how I knew it was 450 yards, because I went out there with him and ranged it. I'm standing in the road waiting. So we're going to head back to Tulsa. And a guy pulled up the truck, had a big hay bale in the back of his truck. His name was Johnson, Mr. Johnson. He got out. I thought, oh, this guy's going to run me off. I said, well, I'm Roger Raglin. He goes, no, I know who you are. He goes, I own the property next to you. He said, have you seen the Big Ten? I said, well, what Big Ten are we talking about? He goes, he's about a 25-inch wide, dark chocolate rack 10-pointer. He goes, he's at least 190. He's somewhere between 190 and 200-inch 5x5. I had him in the bend of this road in mid-November, and I sit here and watched him for 20 minutes to make sure nobody poached him. He said he lives on this 1,200 acres, back and forth to the rock quarry on the 1,200 acres. He goes, but he never gets off. I've been hunting him for 2 years. Have you seen that one? No. I told him, yeah. I said, oh my God. I said, I had him at 150 yards. I said, it was the biggest typical I'd ever seen in my life. And I pulled my shot to watch him fall, shot right over him. He goes, well, you're not the only one. He goes, that buck's got 9 lives. He said, it's incredible. And I called him back the next year to check on the buck. He said, believe it or not, he ended up on a buddy of mine's property 4 miles away. He goes, and 3 different people have shot at him and missed him. He's still alive as far as we know. But to my knowledge, nobody ever killed that buck. But that's the one that I think about that I should have easily made that shot, But I pulled my shot and he's still out there running. I still to this day have not killed a typical like what that buck was. He was something special.
Well, and that's what keeps us going back to the woods, right?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
That's what we tell ourselves keeps us going back to the woods, right?
Yeah. Just a few years after that, Trent, we don't have time today for this story, but I befriended a cowboy in Chanute, filling up my tank. I tell God, man, think deer hunting, talk deer hunting, have deer hunting on your mind, everybody. You never know when you're going to stumble into something. I'm putting gas in my truck. I don't even have a place to hunt. I'm up in Chanute, Kansas, looking for a place to hunt. And a guy pulls up a cow. I'm talking about a cow. Yeah, cowboy. But cowboys have their jeans tucked down in their boots, and there's cow manure all over their truck. I mean, that's a cowboy, And I struck up a conversation with him, and he asked about the deer calls I had hanging around my neck. I said, deer call? What's a deer? Get out of here. What's a deer call? He was, I rolled the window down to shoot my deer out the truck is how I killed mine. And in Kansas, you know what? That's legal. In Kansas, that's legal. But anyway, I befriended him, got to talk, got permission to hunt 7 different properties around Chanute. Good properties. Boy, that was 2 good years, let me tell you. And the snow's flying. It was too wet and cold and nasty to be. I'm sitting in the truck with Mark, my cameraman at the time. And wipers, it was snowing so hard, wipers going like this, and I'm glassing out in front of us. So, oh my gosh, look at that one, Mark. And it was a buck with a doe on the other side of the fence in front of us at 300 yards. I got out of my truck, the glass, got back in the truck, wipers. Mark said, he looks like a good one. I said, he's over 190 typical. He has to be a 190 plus typical. I said, see, that's a full grown doe he's standing next to. It looked like a fawn. She didn't even come up to his belly. He was a giant bodied, giant, world-class Boone and Crockett buck. Is he going to shoot at him? I said, no. He's on the wrong side of the fence, Mar. He was. I said, he's on the wrong. I said, if he jump on this side, I would. But he's on the wrong side of the fence, and I ain't shooting at any buck that's on the wrong side of the fence and have to look over my shoulder and know that I didn't do it right. Yeah. Plus, it's 300 yards. I said, snow. I said, no, that buck turned, never saw him again. I think about those 2 bucks occasionally. At the end of every year, I think about those 2 bucks, the 2 biggest typicals I've ever seen in my life. And I'd like to have them on the wall, but I got several hundred on the wall now. So, I've had a good time. I've been really blessed to do what I've done for so many years, with a lot of success. And I don't have to do it. I don't have to do it anything wrong now there's none of them I have to look over my shoulder, put it that way. Yep. So well, just do it right. Just do it right. And enjoy. The main thing is, Trent, oh my Lord, people, enjoy the experience. I just spent the weekend with Tom Miranda's a dear friend of mine. We were at the Dixie Deer Classic together. And Tom said, we went out to eat, we were at the Olive Garden. And just so you'll know, Tom Miranda, his favorite dish is spaghetti and meatballs. We're eating at the bar, eating spaghetti and meatballs. And Tom said it best. He said, you know what? You're dead for a long time. How well said. Life's pretty short. When you're gone, you're going to be dead for a long time. All right. Enjoy this thing. Enjoy the experience of being a sportsman, hunting and fishing. Soak it up, take it in, enjoy the experience. You make obey the laws of the land, whatever they are, obey the laws of the land, but you make up the rules on what you shoot. You make up the rules on how many times you go and all that stuff. So you make those rules up and you live within those rules. And I know what it's like to shoot Boone and Crockett's. I know what it's like to shoot Boone and Crickets, all right? I like the Boone and Crockett's, but if you like the Boone and Crickets, I say let the air out of them. You shoot the one that you want to shoot and enjoy the experience. It's your hunt. It's your life. You can't live your life and hunt as a hunter trying to make Trent Marsh happy, trying to make Roger Raglin happy, trying to make anybody else happy. You make yourself happy, but get out there and enjoy the experience. Soak it up, love it. If you can get somebody to go with you, if you get your family or friend, share it with. But if nobody will go with you, go by yourself. Enjoy that experience. That's what it's all about.
I can't
go here forever.
I can't think of a better way to say it than that. And I can't think of a better way to end the podcast than that. Roger, I appreciate you jumping on with us. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. It's always a pleasure to hear. There's always another story. So we'll have to get you back on again down the road at some point for sure. But before we do let everybody go, where, you've done a lot and you've been a lot of places, where if people want to find what you're doing these days, where can they find you?
Yeah, well, you just my website, rogerraglin.com. And then we have, I have my streaming channel, rogerraglinchannel.com. And there's just a ton of stuff on there to see, old videos, and there's just so much on there, so much, including, it's not a big secret now that I lost a tremendous amount of weight, and we've had several thousand people lose hundreds of thousands of pounds off the weight loss program. So that's available on the Roger Raglin channel as well. It's not a gimmick or a scam. Trust me. You go on. Yeah, it's a subscription thing, but you can cancel anytime you want. But that's best way to reach me on my website or on the channel. Just punch in Roger Raglin. All kinds of stuff are going to pop up. So come see us. I have a brand new book going to be released here shortly. And I also have a brand new music piano CD as well, going to be released here in just the next few weeks.
And they can find all that on rogerraglin.com. Yes.
Yeah, it'll all be available on rogerraglin.com.
Perfect. Well, again, Roger, can't thank you enough for being here. Remind everybody, rate, review, subscribe to the podcast wherever it is that you're listening. And of course, follow SPYPOINT on social media, and stay tuned for the next episode. Thanks again, Roger.
All right. Thanks, Trent. Good seeing you.